Hi guys, welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. This is Adam, and today's topic is just we're going to go over some of the best posts we've seen on cloudy nights. And since it's the first time we're doing this, we may we'll extend it to some of the best posts we remember through the year, or longer if it comes to that. In general, it's going to kind of be a somewhat open discussion, though. So if anybody has any comments on anything that I bring up, feel free to just chime in. Don't feel bad interrupting me because, first of all, I'm getting sick. I have a sore throat, so I would love to not be talking all night. And also, I think that's going to be the benefit of this is what we kind of take from the post as opposed to what is the context of them. And first post I'll point out is the belt-modded atlas. John Rista belt-modded his atlas, and that's something that Josh suggests all the time. Josh suggests, and we'll probably get to in a future post, but it seems pretty cool. And even I'm sure Josh could elaborate on it, but you're pretty much eliminating your worm gear. Is it your worm gear mesh you're eliminating, or is it your I forget the word of the other gear.
It's your motor gear and then the spur gear.
The spur gear, that's right. Yeah. And what with you buy the belt kit, relatively easy to install. I know in John's post he went through it a little bit and showed what he kind of had, but and I'm sure we're going to get to this in a future session. Hopefully we don't have to make Josh take his mount apart and show it all off, but we'll see how that happens. But that seems like one way. And what are the gains to be had with that, Josh? Did you ever measure your gains on that, or was it mostly just backlash, noticeable backlash? Might have lost Josh.
No, there are gains. You able to hear me?
Yes. Oh, now you're muted. We might have lost him again. All right. Well, Josh is our resident expert on the belt-modded atlas, and we did have some comments of some people interested in knowing parts, where to order the parts for the atlas upgrades, and we'll post them in the comments so you guys can see them if they haven't been posted already. But like I said, we're gonna have a session on that, I'm sure, because there were a lot of people interested in that. Another post that I think is notable. Okay, I see two Joshes now in the call, so he's probably back. But Josh, I was just saying we'll probably get to that in another session because I know we've discussed it. Another post that I thought was notable, Goofy.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. And then we want to come back to it. That's perfectly fine. Goofy posted 30-minute subs on an AVX, and so that's a Celestron AVX, and I just think that's pretty cool because it's a $700 or $800 mount. He has an AT65 on there. I don't know if he has a DSLR or if he has... No, he has a CCD now, I believe. I think, but either way, 30-minute subs on an AVX. You keep your focal length short enough, and you're going to get some pretty long, nice exposures. And a lot of us are chasing those narrow band exposures, and we're finding the same thing: longer subs are better. So that's what we've been finding. So I think beginners coming in, even though you're looking for a beginner mount, if our current round of beginner mounts can do that, it's going to be pretty impressive. On a side note, I'm wondering to myself, is our goal to eliminate guiding? I always say guiding isn't such a big pain in the butt, but our mounts in the next 5 years are we going to be looking at mounts with encoders? Is there going to have to be some sort of visual feedback on a star to really track the way we want without some massive pointing model, without making it user unfriendly? or are they going to make it user friendly? And I'll throw that out there. Anyone that wants to comment on any of that, from 30-minute subs on the AVX to my question, go right ahead. Because I see we have a lot of people in the room now.
I don't see any reason that you need. If you can track perfectly and have it be you know, a system
Josh,
just taking atmospheric extinction into account, then you ought to be able to track pretty much perfectly.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting the gearing right and not needing the guiding. But I wonder if that's coming.
Adam, are you talking about guiding blindly just by the mechanics of the mount?
Yeah, some of the new mounts with encoders, the software BISC is running that ProTrack, and the Astrophysics mounts now, they're with APCC and the encoders. They say you could go 20 minutes unguided. The ASA mounts as well, they're saying 20 minutes unguided. And the way they do that is by taking all the factors into account, atmospheric diffraction and all of that stuff into account. And right now it's the $10,000 and $20,000 mounts. Is it going to be the $700 mounts in 5 or 10 years? Is that what we're looking to do, or is guiding just going to be such a elegant solution? Is it an elegant solution, or is it more of just a camera hanging off your telescope? I don't know. That seems to be every beginner's question: is can I avoid guiding?
Well, I mean, why would you want to when guiding is so relatively easy and precise, and you're actually guiding by the star, which is what we're doing. Otherwise, you're relying on some mechanics formulation or something else to do the guiding. And what do you see at the end? In 15 minutes, you see, oh my gosh, it didn't guide properly. Whereas if you're guiding by a star, you always know where you are, right? Why would you not want to do that?
Well, the thing is that they're finding is that, in fact, you can do that in a lot of cases. You can guide just based on the mount and the pointing model and all the information that the mount knows about itself.
To within a couple of pixels?
I'm sorry, you're coming in garbled.
I mean, you're talking about guiding within a couple of pixels?
Well, you're not exactly guiding. What you're doing is the mount, if the mount knows that every time it gets to this part of the sky, and it knows that it flexes a certain way, and your optical tube flexes a certain way, and your focuser bends a certain way in this part of the sky, it knows that it better speed up a little bit, better slow down a little bit, or turn to the left or turn to the right. It knows that. That's how some of these systems work. Others know to work because of exactly where they are. By the way, I'm way over my head in this. I don't know the details of all these things. I've just sat in on a few sessions where people have tried to explain it. I don't use these things regularly.
Well, I think that I would resort to what all good chemists say. When a proposition like that is put forward in any area of science, we say 3 words. Show me the data.
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm trying to new microphone or something. I can't quite get the.
I would say, show me the data.
Yeah, Alex, I'm at least getting some feedback on your microphone or an echo on your microphone, so I don't know if it's a volume setting or something.
Okay,
yeah.
I've gone off that microphone. I'm back
now
to.
Now you're fine.
Okay. Was it Frank that? No, it was Eric.
That was Eric. Yes.
Yeah, I'm having a difficult time understanding Eric though.
Yeah, Eric, you cut out right at the end. I didn't hear your last 2 words.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to repeat. I would say, show me the data.
Right, yeah. And I think that actually does come down to it. a beginner coming in, if you tell them, oh yeah, your mount can do it to within 5 arcsecs, they might say, oh, well, that's fine. And then we would say, oh, you mean so it's not good enough to actually guide? It's not as good as guiding. And so I think it's at the point where it's as good as guiding, which I think it's never going to be able to really approach that. It'll get really close, but I don't think with long focal lengths it's going to be able to approach that. I kind of think it's something we're chasing but might not be out there. And that's why I'm curious when with APCC coming out and all these people like really pushing that, I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprised they don't just say, you know what, it's so easy to guide. Let's just guide for now.
Eric, you were asking for where's the data. As I said, I don't have the equipment set up. I don't even own the equipment, so I can't give you any data myself. But I have sat in a room with 15 people who do have that data, of which 1, 2, 3 of them said they have taken advantage of it, set it up, and they are getting 15 and 20-minute unguided exposures. So what's that mean? I don't know, but it seems to be possible to get long exposures. How long was their focal length? I didn't go into all that, but I was sitting there with guys that said they were doing it. Yeah, it is kind of hard to believe, but yeah, that's what they were saying.
So is this going to be ultimately a standalone, or at least that's what they're proposing, or is this an adjunct to our current guiding?
Well, this
I don't know. I know that the people I was hanging around with all had mounts that cost anywhere from, well, now I think $5,000 or $7,000, whatever the little Paramount is, all the way up to $15,000. So they were already, they already probably could get 5-minute unguided exposures before this, but it is a whole system. Now, you may be able to build a wonderful pointing model, and the ProTrack system, from what I understand, I'm going to have to get Richard or Steve Bisk to come in here, Richard Wright or Steve Bisk to come in here and actually explain this sometime. But what I'm doing is I'm talking about what I learned from them at a meeting a couple of weeks back. But what you do is you find with 300 samples in the sky, and you do a T-point model on it, and you know where the pointing errors are in all over the sky, every part of the sky, no matter which way your scope is pointing and stuff like that. You know where the errors are, and then you go and tell your mount to run, and your mount just knows where. Now, so which is that? Is that the software? Is the fact that these mounts can probably already run for 5 minutes all by themselves without any kind of guiding, tracking, pro-tracking, anything? Which is it? I don't know. It's probably a combination of all those things. Quality throughout.
Yeah, now that they've come out with the Mighty mount, that seems really impressive. That for let's say $7,000 after everything else, but for $7,000 you're getting a mount that can theoretically go unguided. So it's interesting. And the Aces, I think that the Aces were pretty much the first to really be able to nail that. Maybe not. I guess ProTrack's been out for longer than that, but that's what Aces seem to be going after. Or the real benefit of that immediate response from the direct drives.
Well, does that mean that you spent a considerable amount of time on an observatory setting up all your conditions for your location? I mean,
it's all done through plate solving. So you're actually plate solving 300 points through the sky, and it builds up that model. So it learns the atmospheric diffraction through your system. You do it once in an observatory. I think you actually do it once if you're portable, and then you set up do they call it a mini model or something? Alex probably knows this better than I do.
No, I don't, honest. Don't go telling me I know something, because I really don't know this stuff. Seriously, Adam, all I've done was sit in on the whatchamacall. I'm going to get a hold of the guys and ask them to come on in here and explain this stuff.
They should be wanting to sell some of those Mighty mounts, because the premium mount offerings are getting kind of cluttered, but they're also getting better, and that's pretty cool.
And let me take a moment here to say, because we've got five little faces, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faces listening here. We've probably got another half dozen people out there.
6 pieces.
And this thing will go out on a YouTube, published on YouTube. You're listening to a bunch of people that really don't know what they're talking about here. Okay, we are speculating as to what could happen, what might happen, but and what we have heard from people. We don't own these things. And the question was, from Adam, and it's a bright question, what's going to be happening in 5 years? I mean, did we really think? I've got a ad in our local newsletter from 1980, I think. Ted Hodder wrote an article about, he found a SkyIntel from 1980, 88, something like that. And the C11 was $22,000 because it had the computer on it for $22,000. And you can get that same computer right now down at Costco for probably $240. You could buy a telescope with that same computer in it. So what's going to happen 5 years from now? Oh, we don't know, but we suspect that some of this stuff will be incorporated.
Yeah, it's just interesting. We also were commenting on APODs from 5 years ago. It's crazy how much has changed. You see some of the names, and they're still the names that are out there. They're still the best in the world at imaging. But they've been forced to step up their game because a lot of the amateurs are kind of right at their heels. So that's one thing I found really interesting.
Yeah, I've been looking for the last couple of weeks for a presentation that I prepared some time ago about what makes a quality astro image, and I found it finally on an old laptop. And in order to get this old laptop to work, I had to hold the plug in with one finger, and the other 3 fingers were doing this, that, the other thing. But I got it long enough to find out that, yeah, that's where that old presentation is being stored. It's the only place I could find it. And get it over to a thumb drive, and I got it over on the big computer here. And I started looking at it, and I go, oh, my God, I can't show anybody these pictures. This thing was 5 years old, and the pictures were, well, I got a lot of good what not to do pictures. Okay. So I will be able to give that presentation at some point. But how much has it changed in the last 5 years? I mean, I got some Gendler pictures in there that I'm looking at and going, we have guys in our newsletter that are doing pictures kind of like this. Just guys in the club. So
it really is insane. I mean, you put the time in. Obviously, you have to know what you're doing to begin with. But if you're willing to put the time in on these images, you come out with some great stuff. The equipment's all available to us. The technology just keeps getting better and better. But it just amazes me, especially being a gearhead, liking to know how the stuff works. It's just they've given us such good equipment. But it's actually, the mounts are simple. At least AP mounts are simple. ACEs are a lot more complex. Any other comments on that? That started out with 30-minute subs on the AVX and kind of moved over to what are we looking for in mounts in the future? What are the bargain mounts in the future going to have? If not, my other one is, after discussing it last week, I see a post in the CCD section about the EM CCDs, the electron magnifying CCDs. Electron magnifying, is that what it is? Yes, electron magnifying CCDs. And somebody asked when they're going to be available to the amateur astronomy market. And sure enough, right below, someone posts, hey, I've been using one for 5 years now. And that was a pretty interesting post. Junior is posting, and he had some nice images. And these are images, 5-second subs, extremely low read noise. He's probably dealing with 1024 pixel by 1024 pixel at max, but pretty cool technology inside of a CCD camera.
He was using 1-second subs.
1-second subs, yeah.
His images were incredible. Those galaxy images were just stunningly clean.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess if you're willing to store it, you could do kind of lucky imaging where you just take 2,000 subs and use 1,000 of the best ones, and you're kind of beating seeing a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting though. The cameras don't claim zero read noise. They claim less than 1 to 2 electrons of read noise, not zero read noise. So very good, but not like perfectly clean. However, his images were just astonishing, and he actually, if you go to his site, he does have a section called Lucky Imaging. I couldn't read it because it was in a different language and the translation was kind of sloppy, but the images were pretty cool. They're really a pleasure to look at. The new cameras are, from what I read online, are more like $20,000 right now. So.
And somebody was saying the company is now pushing SCMOS, which I tried to read a little bit about, but I don't know if it's like the same electron magnifying technology or if it's just.
It is the same thing. Those are the chips that they're using in that technology.
So it is. So they're bigger chips with that technology.
I believe so. Yeah.
Well, if we can take 1 second subs, of course, this whole discussion on guiding goes away, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, or even 30-second subs. If you could take 30-second subs of dim nebula and get away with it, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. I need to see this guy's site because I'm curious how color depth and color richness and everything is. With really short subs, I can't imagine you're getting a lot of dynamic range in the images. You may get good signal-to-noise ratio in the end by stacking 1,000 frames, but how does all the rest look?
I'll try and post a link to his site right now. I'm kind of reluctant to post images that I'm not asking these people for, and I hope he doesn't mind. But his site is out there, so I'm just going to post a link to his site. All right. Bringing it back in. All right, I put it in chat. That's his site. And he has the dumbbell up top, but yeah, I go to some of the galaxies and you can see. $3,000 I don't know, they're pretty cool.
Does he have like statistics somewhere where he explains? Oh yeah, here we go. 10 seconds. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean,
he really is. He's stacking 1,000 by 5 second and 1,000 by 2 second.
Yeah. Now, there's another guy who's using an image intensifier, I think, to do similar stuff. And I think he gets really small files. But I'm going to say with this camera, you probably get really large files, right? 16-bit files. I think. It'd take me too long.
16-bit 1 megapixel.
Oh yeah, I guess 1 megapixel. Right. That won't be so bad.
Yeah.
It's like doing a solar session.
This is actually kind of incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's getting all the faint detail, and there's barely a hint of noise.
Mm-hmm.
And he's stacking 200, 500, 1,000 frames every single time. That's just amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Actually, what's interesting, one of the most impressive images I've seen this year was an image on the CCD forum that somebody took of M42 just in the trap, and I think he took something like, several thousand 1 second subs as well, and then somebody did that again recently. But again, I don't want to post links to pictures without their permission, but that one is definitely worth going to look and find. The detail was just incredible. It looked like ruffling curtains inside of the trapezium.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. Yeah, that would eliminate the need for guiding.
Yeah, totally.
Low enough read noise. Yeah, you're you're probably fine. You could get away with 30-second subs.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just coming around to the fact that I'm going to be shooting 40-minute and hour-long subs, and now maybe 5 years down the road we won't be. We'll see. If we're willing to spend that on a camera.
So yeah, how much do these things cost?
The small one, $20,000.
Oh wow.
And that's without a filter wheel or off-axis guider or mounting hardware, or pretty much any of that stuff. So.
Yeah, it's kind of up there. It's beyond most people's means, I think.
Yeah.
And for a tiny chip too. So.
And a very tiny tip. Yeah, I mean it's good for galaxies, I guess, but I can't really imagine doing that, using that for nebula or anything. And he does planetary nebula as well.
Maybe 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, it'll be half the price. 10 years down the road, it'll split in half again, and then it'll be reasonable.
Yeah.
Are there high-resolution versions of these things? These are fairly small.
Yeah, I think this SCMOS is going to be the high resolution, or are going to be the high resolution versions of them. Because the company that developed these, I think, stopped doing anything with them and is now moved on to SCMOS technology.
As far as I understand, they're still 13 micron pixels.
In the new company, in the SCMOS ones?
I think so.
But I think the chips are larger, right?
I think they're twice as big, but they're still tiny.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, I'm already depressed about this.
It's going to change everything. Or not.
But he has some narrowband images in here as well, so he must have a filter wheel of some sort.
Yeah, you can add a filter wheel to it. It's just it doesn't come with it.
Yeah, he's saying it's $20,000 just for the imagery.
Pretty impressive.
I think most of his images are planetary nebula, though, and I think it would be interesting to see more of the fainter nebula as well, because the planetary nebula, even the tiny ones, are still extremely bright. And I'd like to see how some of kind of the more extended faint nebula do, or the details on them at least.
Yeah, 03 on something dim.
Well, he has the eagle in here. He has an SHO image, which is not bad.
Oh, yeah, I see it now. I see where you're pointing.
Oh yeah.
3 by 250 by 5 second. Jeez.
Yeah, look at that bubble.
Bubble.
Oh, he has a horse head in there too. That's a pretty dim target.
Yep.
Bubble's got some nice detail as well.
If those guys are listening, we're not turning down the camera to try out and prove for you.
Right. We'll give you some good exposure. Can't guarantee you'll sell one, but you'll make a few people happy.
3x 250.
I mean, one thing I will say, looking at a number of these, is they look great for what they are. But I think I'd probably be using it, to image at 30 seconds instead of 5 or 2, whatever it is. Just because it doesn't seem like the color is quite as rich and deep as you can get with other imagers.
It's tough to tell too. I mean, because you don't know how he's processing them and what the raw data looks like.
That's true.
Yeah, I think there's some question about processing, and this is a small image, so it's hard to tell what it would look like, on a full page. But he's got a lot of detail. Jeez.
Well, it's also only 1024. Remember, it's only 1024 by 1024, so it's not going to get much bigger than that. That's going to be the limitation of the camera.
Of course, if you're getting this much detail in an hour or two, then mosaics wouldn't seem quite so intimidating, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think processing mosaics is the intimidating part, not really shooting them. But
we're changing subjects, but have you tried the Pix Insight mosaic?
Gradient merge mosaic?
Yeah, but the two-step process. where you build your initial mosaic and then you go back and you use that as a template to roll in your initial?
Yeah, I think I did that. My problem with mosaics is more that I can just never get my stars to look right in both channels, and that's because I tended to do it with my wide field scope that had issues with the stars in the corner, and that should be fixed when my new scope arrives, if it ever arrives. Other thing that's rattling through the forums, I think all of us CAF owners are looking at the Sony CCDs and saying the same thing. Do you get a smaller telescope in one of those, or do I wait for them to come out with a bigger telescope, or wait for them to come out with a bigger sensor? But keep seeing the same thing. That new QSI was a teaser, because it does appear to be smaller, but it's, or excuse me, larger, but it's actually smaller. So
I don't.
go ahead.
I don't know that I'm ready to make that call yet. To be honest, I feel like most of these nebula I would like to be bigger and wider still than even what I'm getting with a reducer at I'm at a 5.6 with a 4-inch scope. And I don't want to give up any more resolution. I find myself craving more resolution, especially for things like the Heart Nebula and these tab holes and stuff. And I mean, I'm not ready to say that I'm ready to make that move yet.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Even though I say it jokingly, but I'd like a larger sensor, not a smaller sensor. And I don't like thinking that I'm losing light around the edges of the sensor. So Sony has to step up a little bit more if they're going to get my money. But
yep. In the small pixels too. I want the small pixels and something bigger than the CAF chip. A full APS-C one like that Sony A7, but a mono version. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
By the way, JTW is doing a cooled version of that camera. The Sony A7.
Oh, the Sony? Oh, really?
Yes.
Hmm.
Not mono, but a cooled version of that camera, and it's supposed to be, according to their Facebook page, it's supposed to be in stock all year next year on the shelf.
That's crazy. We're going to hear the rumors for the new Canon cameras coming out soon, and they might have some cool technology in them. Let's see if they can come back, re-enter the race for the best cameras, because Sony's kicking their butts, I think.
My worry about Canon is it sounds like they may be doing something with layered sensors, which would be awesome. But if they stick with their current readout system where they have the high-frequency off-die ADC units, I think they're screwed. I don't know why they've been sticking with that for so long. I'm a Canon user myself, and it just bugs me that they just aren't stepping up their game. But I think the sensors are already really good. I think it's the ADCs, which are just off the die and on the main board, are the real problem.
Yeah, and that's what gives them read noise in the low ISOs, right? Or ISOs?
It gives them the high read noise at low ISO, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, really high. I mean, you look at the 1DX, it's like 38 electrons. I mean, that's a massive amount of read noise.
Yeah.
And then you have a hacked DA10, which I think has like 5.6 electrons at ISO 100.
Yeah, it's they have some catching up to do, which is interesting because it wasn't that way just a few years ago. They were really at the top of their game, and now Nikon's buying their sensors.
Yeah, everybody's buying Sony sensors now.
Yeah. Yeah, Eric brought up the ASA mounts, the ASA mounts, and if I knew anything about them, and I told him a little bit before we started what I knew about them, but they're also interesting mounts, just that direct drive, so there's no worm gear in them. It's basically a motor that's powering one way or another, and it's powering precisely based off the voltage, I believe, and kind of compensates actively for anything. So if there's wind on it, it'll compensate. They're pretty cool mounts. They're like the Ferraris of mounts, so to speak, but pretty nice.
Does anyone know more about the Avalons?
You know, I don't know much more about them. I just read in Astronomy Technology Today. There's a good article on them, but it's kind of I say it's a good article. It's an okay article. It's not very detailed. It doesn't really tell you what you have to do to use the mount or like any of that stuff. I'm kind of curious about how hard it is to configure between all of the setups, so to speak. They did say 5 arcsec performance, 5 arcsec periodic error, which seems very good. So
that's very good, yeah.
Yeah.
And with the belt only, drive, you can reverse with immediate response. So 5 arc seconds with that, to me, would be better than 5 arc seconds with HDX 110 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I am not convinced that the periodic error is that big of a deal. I cared a lot about it when I first did my belt conversion, and to the point where instead of getting the plug-and-play one, I made my own belt conversion kit. Just, after doing a lot of testing and stuff, I found out it just doesn't make a difference at all. And I think that the higher frequency noise is much more of an issue than a smooth, long periodic error, personally. Now, it might be a different story altogether if you try to go away from guiding, but I think when you're guiding, I think it makes your mount work a little bit harder, but it's not that much harder. Put it this way, I was not able to improve my guiding at all by having a perfect correction curve on.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess it's, if anything, it separates the responsible mount manufacturers from the kind of off-the-shelf mount manufacturers, because if you are publishing periodic error statistics, it at least means you're paying attention to those things and it matters to you. I don't know, does Celestron publish statistics like that, or from what I understand they don't, or at least I don't think they do.
I think they said 5, plus or minus 5 on the CG Pro.
Right, on the Pro, I know they do, yeah, that's right.
Nothing lower than that, though, yeah.
Right.
I think it's an indication of the quality of manufacturing, but I don't think it's really a super important statistic for actual performance.
Yeah.
You know what does relate to periodic error is what the curve looks like. If the curve is smooth and it takes a long time to get from +5 to -5 or something like that, then you're right, you can guide through it pretty easily. But if the curve all of a sudden jumps back and forth, then it's a little harder for the guider to catch up sometimes. But I agree with you that an awful lot of people want, I think go back to the earlier discussion, what good, it's nice to be able to take a 20-minute sub without guiding, okay? That'd be fine. But if that cost me $3,000–4,000 compared to a guiding system that cost me $600, gosh, why don't I go with the guiding system? Because the guiding system can get me within plus or minus half a arc second anyway. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Maybe I missed it while you guys were talking, but I mean, realistically, I think you need to be under half an arc second of performance if you're going to go without guiding. I'm not sure if you guys mentioned that when I dropped off.
No, but I would agree.
Yeah. Right. So if it's $500 instead of $5,000, then that's where I'll be living for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. There's also the fact that you are required to have a very good polar alignment if you're going to go non-guided.
Practically perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, it just adds a lot of complexities to it, and it's kind of simple to guide. That's
Right.
It's not like it's kind of simple.
And it's not really $5,000, right? I mean, the upgrade for the astrophysics mounts are more like closer to $10,000.
Yeah. But I guess the Paramounts have it, so.
To my credit, Paramount now all have absolute encoding built in.
Yeah.
Of course, they're all like over $10,000 anyways. So.
Well, now the MIT is 6,000, so that's the new bargain mount with encoders, I guess. I mean, I don't. They really hit a. You don't say this about Paramount, but they hit a price point on that.
They really did. So I didn't realize I had encoding. It's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, that was the first thing I asked. Was it Richard Wright? Yeah, Richard Wright. Because like the Mighty does that for that price? Okay, that seems pretty cool.
Oh, between that and the Avalon, it sounds like and even the HDX 110, I think, which they were reporting that as like plus or minus 3 arc seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe peak to peak, I forget what it is, but that just sounds. Those are really good mounts, and they're all within $5,000-$6,000 price range.
Yep, and Glenn's bringing up that mount right now, and plus 3 or minus without PEC. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of them. I have no experience with that mount, so I haven't even seen one, so I wouldn't be the one to comment on it.
I think that Gary Honus is using one now with an AT10RC maybe, or AT12RC, and I think he's liking it quite a bit. I haven't heard of a lot of people using them, but everything I've heard has been very positive. I think the polar scope is a little bit wonky, and I think that it's I think that the tripod is expensive, however, very nice if you actually include it. And I see you say you have an 8-inch RCT. I'm assuming 8-inch, like AT8 RC maybe, which should be the Atlas mount is plenty for the 8-inch RC.
Yeah, the TPO, same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think any of us know. Gary Honus, you could probably reach out to him and ask him.
He has a video. He has a video of him setting it up and taking it down, and he talked about like there was some issue with either the mount or some nut in bolt somewhere, and I think he also talked about some quirky issues with the polar scope. I forget what that was, but he posted it. I think he posted it himself in one of the forums not long ago. So I'll see if I can find that.
Glenn wants it to be the last mount he buys. I want every piece of equipment I buy to be the last piece of equipment I buy, and it'll never happen. I've kind of covered my list insofar as things we want to discuss. Anyone else have any topics they want to bring up, whether they're posts on Cloudy Nights or anything like that? I don't see anyone. Trying to think back. We're reluctant to show people's photos on here without their permission. I know 90% of the people won't mind, but we're on Cloudy Nights, so they post them on Cloudy Nights for us to bring them into this video. I don't know. It'd probably be better for me to reach out to the guys who post the awesome photos and ask them to come on and present a little bit. I have a few guys in mind who I think would have some great insight, but I have to ask them and they have to be willing.
What's the source of your reluctance about posting the images?
Because, I don't know, are we allowed to? We don't own the photos, and we're putting them on our YouTube.
Well, I come from the world of education. I was a high school teacher for a long time. And you don't have permission to reproduce them, I guess. But as long as you attribute them and you're not for profit, I don't think you can get sued for it or anything like that. That's really not going to be an objection at all. There is such a thing called fair use policy. It says that for educational purposes, for a nonprofit, as long as it's properly attributed, you can use it. I agree with you that it's nice to have permission from people, but if they've gone and posted it on Cloudy Nights, one has to assume that we can look at it and show it to other people, as long as we don't start claiming it as our own.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Then I looked at some people. Well, I guess a lot of people put their whatever they're called, their logos or their shadow box things on there just to kind of identify it. So I don't know. I guess we could go in and look at a few, but I I think we're all on cloudy nights, so for the time being, I think maybe we'll just, especially since the resolution probably isn't going to be the best, maybe we'll post a link for now, try and bring it for others to see. Unless anyone here has particular photos that they've taken to offer. I honestly think it'd be good to reach out to a few of these people and just ask them to come on, and maybe it'll give us a reason to chat with them.
I think one person who would be interesting to bring on at some point is Sergey, because he's doing all that stuff with one-shot color, and there's always conversations about if you can do narrowband with one-shot color. And his images that I mean, they're amazing images for what they are, and they're just great images, period. I think that you can tell a little bit what the difference is, but he's just, a kind of a perfect example of, what you can accomplish if you're willing to try hard for it, and, kind of, you can see the best of what you can do with that, and I think it would be worth looking at his and have him come on and talk a little bit about what he does.
A good idea. Yeah, I'd like to have one of the long focal length guys come on. One in particular who managed to shoot really, really small targets and nobody has any idea how he's doing it. That's Rick J, because his photos are unbelievable. He just posted another galaxy, and I don't know how he's doing it. You think he's on a mountaintop somewhere, but I don't think he is. Well, no, I looked up his altitude because I wanted to see, and he's not on a mountaintop.
He lives over by Hytham, I think, somewhere up there.
Yeah, well,
Midwestish.
Midwest, yeah.
Upper Midwest.
Yeah, and he's got dark skies, but I don't know. It's
those dark skies make an incredible difference. We've looked at the math for it. I mean, on the order of 20, 50 times, the amount of light that you need to gather.
Yeah.
However, he still gets really nice resolution and detail too.
Yeah. That's a crazy thing. I don't know if he's sitting in a area of great skiing, but it's just lots of detail. Small galaxies, but lots of detail. Any other any other ideas as to content for future things? I know I'd still like to do a mount follow-up where we go over some of the mounts we didn't cover. Obviously, Josh knows we still want an Orion Atlas breakdown for the belt mod. Any other ideas?
I would like to know more about the Avalon. I mean, I don't know if we can get one of those guys to talk or something, but I'm very interested in that mount, and it'd be nice to know more. I mean, I didn't know about what the PE was. Maybe it doesn't matter, like Josh says, but just kind of knowing more about it is helpful. When you're trying to make a decision between, say, an AP Mach 1 or an Avalon or something like that. Or I guess now there's the new Paramount, so they're all in the $6,000-7,000 price range, and it would just kind of be nice to know what all the real differences are and what the money's buying.
Yeah, I did reach out to Ed at Deep Space Products, and I didn't hear back from him. So he's probably the best one to go over it, and I didn't hear back from him, so I guess I'm going to have to browse the forums and look for someone with an Avalon. And Glenn is saying Avalons are more like 10 or 12 by the time you're done. I think, yeah. There's a couple models of them, right? Trying to think.
So on the Avalon site, they have the M1, the M0, and the linear fast reverse. They all use the same kind of belt drive. Two of them are arm-based, like this interesting declination arm-based, and then the linear is a standard equatorial. They're listed with imaging capacities, which are pretty high, like 44 pounds for the M1. I'm kind of curious to know why they're 10 to 12 when you're done, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the tripods they sell for them are pretty. So maybe they charge a lot for them. I couldn't imagine that much, but they are nice tripods. You know what? Maybe I think I know what it is. When you're adding all of those attachment things, each attachment probably gets expensive because you have that attachment on the bottom for the guide scope. And yeah, he's getting tripods, weights, etc. Yeah, where did I see that? Where did I see the list of extra parts you might need if you're attaching guide scope? That might have been in the Astronomy Tech Today article. But there were a lot of accessories that seem like you might need for one reason or another.
I don't know if you do the Amino Complete kit on Deep Space Products, it's actually about $8,500, and that includes tripod and a whole bunch of stuff. You know, mount carrying handle, dovetail, polar finder, counter bar, counterweights, carrying bag, the Avalon T110 tripod, soft carrying bag. So it sounds like it's about the same price as a Mach 1.
Yeah. Well, it's tough competing against a Mach 1.
Yeah.
Although the Mach 1 is not much cheaper if you include all the other accessories with that too.
Oh no, you're at the same price. It's just
I'll vouch for that. That's absolutely true. But they are nice mounts, no matter what.
yeah, I think it's just a matter of whether you're willing to go with the newer technology or whether you want the original technology. But not flipping on the Meridians. Well, I don't know if that bothers me so much anymore. All these things that I was intimidated by as like a new imager, I've kind of grown accustomed to, and they've just kind of been worked into my routine, especially with Sequence Generator. Like, who cares about the Meridian flip? Who cares about focusing? Who cares about all that? It does it all for you.
Yeah, there's two distinct markets. There's the mobile imager and the permanent imager. Well, there might even be three. There might be the completely mobile imager, the guy who sets up in his driveway like I do on a regular basis, and then the guy with an observatory. And I think each of us need different things out of the mounts. Like, I can't say enough how much I appreciate EQ Mod's polar alignment routine because, you know, we've talked about this on Cloudy Nights a lot, and you know, a lot of people make such a big deal about it. It's such an afterthought for me to get down to under 30 seconds or 20 seconds of polar alignment error. I just don't even think about it. I don't worry about it. If I accidentally bump, I mean, it's a pain if I do it in the middle of the night, but even if I bump my scope in the middle of the night, it only takes, you know, 10 minutes to park my scope, realign it, and then start up again. So, like, a good polar scope for me is critical in being able to use it. And you might not care about that at all on yours, or you might not even have one. I'm not sure.
On my Mach 1, I'm waiting for the RA, the right angle polar alignment scope. The old Mach 1 polar alignment scope doesn't work well. I actually noticed the prism in mine is chipped, so I somehow chipped it, which there's a big warning in the astrophysics manual not to chip the little optical window in your polar alignment scope, and I guess I did.
I guess you still take yours out to dark sites occasionally?
Yeah, and I use my polar alignment scope to just kind of get a quick polar alignment, and then they have the meridian flip delay, quick drift meridian delay, polar alignment routine. So you use your finder scope, and you flip on meridian. This meridian delay feature lets you flip back and forth on the meridian while you're pointing at the same star, and you pretty much just iteratively polar align by flipping back and forth and back and forth. And I'd say it takes probably 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. It's a pretty cool routine. And you do it with your finder scope, so you don't have to take your camera off, you don't have to be flipping through photos. Like, it's nice that you don't have to touch any of the other stuff while you're doing it.
So I guess I wonder sometimes if you've considered just getting like a Sirius and using your wide field refractor for when you go to a dark site. I've certainly thought about that, kind of setting up more permanently at home and getting that mobile mount.
I thought of that a lot. In fact, I'm in the back of my head. I think that I'm gonna buy a used AP 900 to replace my Mach 1, and then I'm gonna get a portable system. And when I get the AP 900, then I'm not really limited to what I can put on it. So.
Right. I think Glenn is actually the guy I sold my Sirius to earlier this year, and I regret it every day. I wish I held on to that. I would be a lot more likely to go out to a site if I had that Sirius still. It's just such more a pleasure to carry around with you.
Yeah, I actually just want to do some really, really wide field stuff. I don't know if you saw. Actually, this is a post in Cloudy Nights about the guy who bought or who lost his niece. And her father had bought a star for her, and he wanted a photograph of the Orion region. And it made me think of, and I know Alex had offered to take a picture. I wish I could see Orion because I'd offered to take a picture, but I suggested Rogelio Bernal Andreo, or I think that's his name, his Orion region photograph, which is amazing. And it just makes me want to do like really, really wide field of certain regions, but I can't see the whole Orion constellation from my house here, so I have to go somewhere else. I have to go to darker skies or somewhere. So I'd love to do that type of thing, and you don't need the Mach 1 for that.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I would like to have for going out to do. Even I don't know, like a little lens or something.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably don't even need guiding for that.
You know, the picture that you're talking about from Mark, I think, Mark only lives about 40, 50 miles away from me. So he's got the same weather I do, pretty much. But he's a very good astro imager in his own right. You know, you guys might be interested if you want to take those kind of pictures. Just put your Canon up on your Polaroid, or I mean, it doesn't. I get great pictures off my GM8 and my Canon. I mean, no guiding, no anything's necessary because you're at such a small image scale, you know, per pixel. So you can take 3-minute exposures unguided. Just even with the Polaroid, you can get 1 minute pretty regularly. Or not with the Polaroid. I use an Ioptron Sky Tracker. What you want is those big wide fields.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people at the star parties using the Astro tracks as well, and they get some pretty cool pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, the little ones. Lasmundi has one out now too, I think. Probably for a little bit bigger. I guess it's just a matter of how heavy your lens is at that point. And I think, I don't know, Orion, what is with an APS-C, you're probably using a 50 millimeter, right? Is that about what you'd be at?
I think so.
Yeah. Make a pretty nice image. Makes a pretty nice image. All right. Anyone else have anything to bring up? All right. I hate to make it too early of a night, but I am fighting a cold, so it won't take much for me to be motivated. So if we don't have anything, I'm probably gonna thank you all for thank you in the YouTube side for coming, and I'm probably gonna end the broadcast now. But again, we'll be back next week, so feel free to come by.